Sterling Heights Public Library. My name is Brent, and we are going to be doing something a little bit different today. Today we are going to be working on a potato and corn chowder. So if you want to come down to the board, we'll go over some of the ingredients here. So first thing we're going to be playing around with, we're going to be using some bacon. We're going to need an onion. We're going to need some potatoes. Now you're going to see two different kinds of potatoes here. These redskins are the ones we're going to be using today. You don't need to get picky about the potatoes, but if you get into a russet, these things, if you make soup out of them, have a tendency to break down, so you don't necessarily want to use these for that type of an application. They'll work, but you'll get a different texture. We've got a couple ears of corn, a little bit of thyme, some parsley. We're going to use a green onion for some garnish. We've got salt and pepper. Couple of cups of chicken broth, and some whipping cream. So pretty basic ingredient list here. We'll show you how to put it together and what to do with it. Okay, so we did most of the prep work off camera here, and just mostly to save time here, we're going to walk you through the preparation and how this works today. So I've got a pan on the stove right now. I just turned the heat on. And we are going to render the bacon. So I got about 4, maybe 5, nice thick cut strips here, about a cup worth. That's going to go right in there. And when you're rendering bacon, you don't want to use a real high heat. A, it's going to splatter a lot more. B, you're going to be a lot more likely to burn it. So get that kind of going a little bit. We're going to turn down the heat a little bit and just kind of let it go slow. While we're doing that, I'll also show you how to get going on the rest of this thing. So we're going to use 2 pans today. This is going to go a little faster this way, but you certainly can do this all in one pot if you want to. So I've got a second pan here. I'm going to get that on heat as well. And I've got my potatoes here. Now I did not peel these, so if you're not peeling them, you want to make sure that you get them washed off good, make sure that there's no debris or grit, dirt on them at all. So we're going to toss those right in the pan there. And these are relatively, small, nice bite-sized dice. We got 2 cups of chicken broth here. We got about, I don't know if I mentioned how many potatoes we got there. We had about 4 or 5 small redskins. It's about a pound worth. Basically, you see that okay? You want those potatoes just covered with the liquid, and then we're going to kind of just bring those up to a simmer. Once they come up to a simmer, they're probably going to take about 15-20 minutes. We're not going to do all that on camera, but okay. If you can see down here in the bacon, you can kind of hear it sizzle a little bit, starting to render a little. Just give that a little stir once in a while and keep an eye on it. You don't want to walk away from this stuff. Okay, so our bacon's been going for a few minutes now, and this is starting to get kind of crisp. We don't need to take it all the way to fully crisp, but what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just turn that heat off for a second. Just take a moment to... I'm just going to pour off a little bit of the fat on that. I don't want to pour off all of it. I want some of it to do our next step, but I don't need all of it. So I probably poured off about a tablespoon. Turn the heat back on. Okay, so next step, we're going to take our corn, which we took off the cob. This hasn't been previously cooked, but you can definitely use pre-cooked. So if you have some couple of ears of leftover corn laying around, that works. Frozen also works. I like fresh better, but fresh is not always available year-round. So we're going to let that get going a little bit, and we're going to hold off just a little bit before we add the onions. I am going to add the thyme at this point though. So we got probably about a teaspoon of fresh thyme there. Dried works. You can see over here on this other burner, my potatoes are coming up to a little bit of a boil. So we're just going to kind of let those go for a little bit. stirs. Okay, so our corn's been going for a few minutes, and it's getting to a point where it's cooked. And if you look down here on the bottom of the pan, you see this kind of color in here. A lot of that's from the bacon, but some of that's coming from the corn too. So, and obviously you can't smell this, but it's smelling pretty good right now. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and add the onion. And we got about a cup of chopped onion here, not super fine dice. That was about a medium-sized onion. Exact proportion is not super important. We're not going to worry too much about getting color on the onion. We do want to soften it a little bit, but I wanted to get a little bit of development of flavor on that corn before I added the onion. So we're going to keep this going for a little bit. Keep stirring it occasionally. We are not using real high heat here, so this does take a little while, but it's going to develop some really nice flavors. Our potatoes are still at a nice simmer here. They are not quite ready yet. They're starting to soften a little bit. You can test them with a fork, but they're not quite where we want them to be yet. It doesn't matter if they're at exactly the same time as this is ready. We can just pull them aside if we need to. So, you know what? At this point, I am going to add a couple of nice grinds of pepper too. We won't fool around with salt until down towards the end. The bacon has already got some salt in it. So does the chicken stock. We don't want to over salt this, but we don't want to under season it either. Okay, so it's been a few more minutes, and we've got the onion is starting to go translucent, starting to soften a little bit. And you can see that the color on the bottom here is deepening a little bit more. And while we were away, potatoes did get to a point where they're tender, so test those with a fork. So what we're going to do at this point, we're going to go ahead and add the green onions, well, most of the green onion. I did save a little bit at the top here for when we get to the end where we're going to serve it. We're going to garnish it a little bit. I wanted to add the green onion a little late in the process, just because I don't really want to take away from the freshness of that. I've got a little bit of chopped parsley here. It's probably about a tablespoon. Again, I'm going to add that towards the end, because we're getting pretty close here. Just stir that through. We'll go ahead and take our potatoes and chicken broth and go ahead and add those in. I'm just going to start with the liquid and give that a few stirs here. I want to get some of that nice color off the bottom of the pan. So keep going with that. Heat on that down a little bit because it's really got some fire to it. Okay, so that's coming together nicely. Okay, and you'll be able to feel a little bit on the bottom of the pan when that brown stuff starts coming up with your spatula or spoon or whatever you're using to stir with. I really like these rubber spatulas. This works really well for a lot of things. Okay, so we got that going. I'm going to go ahead and add the potatoes in here. When you're adding potatoes to hot liquid, or anything to hot liquid, be careful about splashing. So, okay, now, does that look super thick? It does, but we haven't added the cream yet. So, bear with me a moment here. Give that a little bit of a additional stir. Now, you want to be a little careful about adding any kind of dairy into something that's really hot, because you can cause it to break and curdle. In this case here, it's one of the reasons I turned the heat down a little bit. Didn't want to throw this in there while it was still actively boiling. Stir that through. Get everything combined nice. Now it's still on heat, but it's just on a low heat right now. But everything is cooked, everything is combined. I'm going to give that a taste here in a second and adjust some seasonings. Okay, so there's my spoon. Okay, the flavors in this are coming together really nicely. I am going to add a little bit more pepper. Yes, I like pepper. And I think we're going to need probably about a teaspoon of salt. Potatoes and the corn really soak up salt, so just be a little careful about not going crazy with the stuff until you've had a chance to taste it. Because it's always easier to add more than it is to try and get it back out of there. Oh yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about serving this. So basically we got ourselves a dish here, a ladle. Get yourself a little of that in there. That's what it's going to look like. Garnish it with a little bit of that green onion that we took the tops of and sliced finely. And we're good to go on that. So we've got a nice, easy, I won't say light, it's a pretty hearty soup here. But we're coming into some cooler weather here sometime in the near future. We're just about to Labor Day right now, so we're not done with harvest time yet. We got still good access to nice corn and things. And as the weather cools off and you start getting in the mood for some warmer stuff, this is a good option. It doesn't take a long time and it's easy to make. Thank you very much. Give this a try. I hope you like it.